This is the Badger Report.
Coronavirus infection rates continue to rise in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's number of cases sits at 4,171 with 81 deaths. Public health officials are recommending that people refrain from social gatherings and follow COVID-19 health guidelines. As we approach the holidays, Governor Tony Evers emphasizes the importance for Wisconsinites to practice increased precautions when it comes to visiting family members.
As many individuals and families ramp up their holiday traditions, some may be virtually for the first time, it's important to remember the pandemic has not gone away.
Since the beginning of the pandemic, Wisconsin has been a hub for COVID treatment efforts. Working with pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca, UW Health initiated vaccine trials in August. Currently, UW Health is preparing to serve as a central storage facility for the Midwest regional supply of the Pfizer vaccine. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services and UW Health will distribute the vaccine to healthcare systems and long-term care facilities in the region at the end of the month. The Food and Drug Administration has confirmed the safety and efficacy of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine. In an analysis, the FDA reports that the vaccine provides almost full protection against the COVID-19 virus. The vaccine is administered in 2 doses, 3 weeks apart. The FDA reports that the vaccine will begin to take effect after the first dose. According to the report, serious side effects are rare, and the vaccine works very well despite a person's age, sex, race, ethnicity, or previous COVID-19 infection. Wisconsin has received a shipment of the vaccines and will begin administering tests to the public following authorization from the FDA. This decision was made yesterday.
Rapid COVID-19 antibody testing is now available at Pick and Save and Metro Market pharmacy locations. Anybody interested in taking the test can sign up online. The total cost is $25, and you can get your results back within 15 minutes.
I'm so glad to hear that antibody testing is more accessible now, and it seems like the vaccine will probably be widely available soon too.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it, Lily. As for now, COVID-19 continues to impact everybody's daily routines, particularly essential workers. The Badger Report's Stephen Potter checks in with the Madison Fire Department to see how the pandemic is affecting their work.
Most of us can decide to stay away from people who might be infected with COVID-19. Firefighters, paramedics, and emergency medical technicians don't have that luxury. Instead, they rush headfirst into emergencies and accidents where people need help. And that includes unknown situations where someone they're helping just might have the coronavirus.
I recall that you do have is not a COVID positive person, or you don't have to treat it like that, right?
The added stress of a virus that can affect you and your family members, taking that home from work with you, isn't fun to think about.
One of the changes that the Madison Fire Department has made because of the pandemic is to try and limit the number of personnel interacting with patients on the scene of an emergency or accident. But that's not always possible.
If it's a cardiac arrest or something like that, where you need all 6 people for what's going on.
For a number of reasons, it's hard for firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs to know how many of their patients have had the coronavirus.
It's pushing probably about 10 or 12 for sure that I've been in contact with that I know of. Because there's a lot of the calls that we don't hear back from that the patients could be positive. It seems like the numbers are increasing every day.
So far, 50 members of the Madison Fire Department have contracted COVID-19. That's led to some staffing challenges, as well as an increase in overtime.
The overtime budget's definitely been drained quite a bit because when you are sick, you have to stay away from the station.
Regardless of the numerous new challenges firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs face because of the coronavirus pandemic, they say nothing will stop them from helping those who need it.
You just wear your PPE and you go to work and you get the job done.
For the Badger Report, I'm Stephen Potter.
The Trump administration's recount lawsuit continues to be debated in Wisconsin.
When we come back, we'll break down the latest updates on the election lawsuit and its potential impact.
Lawsuits challenging the result of the 2020 presidential election are continuing to pour in from President Trump's legal team. However, none have shown proof of widespread voter fraud or illegalities so far.
Here's what we know about the lawsuit so far. A federal judge did not rule from the bench by the time this was recorded Thursday afternoon, but indicated he was unlikely to overturn Wisconsin's election results. When Wisconsin did vote back in November, it seems like the coronavirus was high on the list of issues for voters, but it wasn't as bad of an issue for President Trump as some thought it would be.
There was a frame that he put out and was somewhat successful at putting forth that he handled it, it's not a big deal, et cetera, et cetera.
UW professor Mike Wagner found that many Trump supporters don't consume any news at all, which may be a reason the president's arguments against COVID-19 and voter fraud are still circulating.
The largest category were media avoiders, people who weren't using or consuming news at all in terms of support for President Trump.
While Trump supporters may believe what the president is saying, the judges involved in his legal case don't seem to. Wisconsin electors are currently scheduled to give their 10 votes to Joe Biden on December 14th.
The University of Wisconsin-Madison's Elections Research Center has been hard at work analyzing the outcomes of the 2020 presidential election and the influence of Wisconsin voters.
Today, the Election Research Center's Professor Mike Wagner joins us to discuss the election outcomes in 2020. Professor Wagner, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
All right, so we're just kind of curious, what data has been most striking to you and your colleagues in post-election analysis?
Well, I would say one thing that jumps out the most is that supporters of President Trump are more likely than not to say that they believe that things are going in such a way in the United States that they may have to take up weapons to stop it. And that's a very distressing finding, that people are openly endorsing the idea that they may need to take to the streets with weapons to alter the course of a free and fair election, where the election, by all accounts that are legitimate and fact-based, was one that was freely conducted, fairly conducted, accurately counted, and did not contain any widespread voter fraud.
Interesting. So was there a strong contributing factor in the outcome of this year's election in Wisconsin, do you think?
I think there were many factors. I think the coronavirus was one, the state of the economy was another, the overall satisfaction or general dissatisfaction that Wisconsinites tended to have toward the job approval of President Trump was one. I think people also have known and trusted Joe Biden for a long time. And so some folks who might not have been willing to vote for Hillary Clinton, either because of sexist reasons or reasons of a lack of trust that came from policy or past performance, kind of melted away when it came to support for Biden. His support for Kamala Harris, I think, also did more to energize some communities in Wisconsin that didn't turn out to vote as much in 2016 as they did in 2020. But this was a razor-thin election. 15 things mattered, and they all mattered by a few thousand votes, and that's probably why Joe Biden won by around 20,000 here in our state.
Absolutely. And considering the Trump administration's multiple attempts to overturn the election in states across the country, how do you think the public should be feeling about the strength of our democracy at the moment?
I think the public should be worried about the strength of our democracy. It's unfathomable to most people that a sitting president would decide that a freely and fairly conducted election that didn't go his way was one that he should try to contest and contest without evidence, and yet contest it in a way that pretends that he's certain about the result, when the result is that Joe Biden plainly and obviously won the election. Of course, President Trump told us he would do this, and so it's not very surprising that he's doing it. What's more surprising is the hundreds of Republican lawmakers around the country who are not willing to say that Joe Biden won the election. And if they aren't willing to say that, I suppose we should ask if we don't think that they won their re-elections. If the election was fraudulent for one, why not for them?
So going off of this, do you think there's anything that people should be paying attention to in the coming weeks leading up to the inauguration? Is there anything that you would say you would advise people to help navigate this tough time?
Look for clear demonstrations of evidence, not just wild claims or promises that someday the evidence will come.